Welcome everyone to the Cardboard Crash Course. My name's Ethan and I'm interviewing Dane Beltrami from Fantasy Flight Games today. He's the lead designer of the Twilight Imperium 4th edition base game and the Prophecy of Kings expansion. We had a really great conversation with my list of questions that I had for him, and I'm really excited for you all to watch it as well. I just want to thank Fantasy Flight Games and specifically Dane for being on the channel, because it's been 4.5 years. That's right, the Mahakt Faction Guide came out in December of 2020. Almost 5 years ago. That's crazy to me. And being that I was already a fan of Twilight Imperium beforehand, enough to make a channel about it and still be talking about it 5 years later, I am over the moon excited for you all to see our conversation. Just to control your expectations a little bit, no, we don't reveal anything to do with future content specifically. But yes, for all of you out there, I did ask him about the box-shaped thing. Also, he worked a lot on one of my other favorite games of all time. Isn't that cool? Well, without further ado, let's jump on into it. All right, welcome to the Cardboard Crash Course. Would you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Dane Beltrami. I'm the lead developer on Twilight Imperium 4th edition and its expansion, Prophecy of Kings, as well as the codexes and other games.
All right. Well, it's great to have you on the Crash Course. We talk a lot about specifically Twilight Imperium, but also I've got a channel dedicated to teaching board games in general. So just kind of general game design is my passion. I don't work in the industry, but it's great to meet you. I'm sure everybody
Likewise.
on the Cardboard Crash Course is excited too. I've got a list of questions for you today, a couple personal, couple specifically related to TI. If you're watching this, it's going to be up on the Twilight Imperium Cardboard Crash Course channel. So, of course, we're going to go in that direction, but I do want to learn a little bit about you as well.
Fire away.
Yeah, so I first want to start off just what generally brought you into this game design space? How'd you end up with FFG, TI, all of the above?
Oh, yeah. So this would have been... So in college was the first time I really played a hobby board game. However, I've been playing and designing stuff for tabletop RPGs ever since my friend's dad got us into Dungeons and Dragons when I was in 3rd grade, I think.
Okay.
That was our first time, and then I was obsessed with it. I even had grid paper that I'd have with me in the car, and I'd be talking my brother through stuff while we're going. So I've always been very about the design. But yeah, board games. A friend got me into the Eon edition of Cosmic Encounter.
Oh yeah.
In
Okay.
college, and I thought that was just the wildest thing, and I loved it. And not too long after that, I want to say a webcomic I was reading had the author wrote something about Arkham Horror 2nd edition. And I was like, this sounds insane. And I bought it and I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. Which actually then, led me directly to Fantasy Flight and then Twilight Imperium 3rd edition eventually. And so I was obsessed with Twilight Imperium long before I had any idea that I was going to end up working at Fantasy Flight.
Did you and your friends manage to actually get Twilight Imperium to the table pretty often?
Oh yeah, all the time. Even till after college, a lot of us stayed in the same area afterward, and so we had a group of at least 4 or 5 that was able to play semi-regular-ish. I mean, for Twilight Imperium, that could mean twice a year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've gotten to the point where it's quarterly is what we hope for.
Yeah, that's a lot of plays, to be honest. So then I ended up applying for an internship, just kind of on a whim, and ended up getting that internship. Went out to Minnesota. I actually just moved for the internship. I was working at Starbucks at the time, and I was just like, oh, I can work at a Starbucks there. So let's just move because I'll probably want to follow this up. And then it took me 3 applications after that, or maybe even 4, before I got even a phone interview. And when I finally got the phone interview, then I got the real interview, and then I got the job. But
okay.
I got rejected like 3 times or something like that.
Little did they know.
I guess I don't know. I don't know if I did them any favors, but here I am.
Um, so okay, so well, that's kind of good for my follow-up question because we were talking about getting TI to the table. Um, do you still have games that you like prefer over others to get them onto the table nowadays? Like, what do you enjoy
Like
in
my
your free
my
time?
favorite games. Oh yeah.
Or is it kind of just like
So
board game design is just sort of like developed, like engulfed you?
that's an interesting question. Uh, Board game design does sometimes feel like work now, which means you will probably not see me pushing the group to play board games at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm happy for us to do a game night and we'll play, whatever online or whatnot. But in terms of like me pushing things to the table, I'll always say yes, but I'm not gonna go out of my way. When I do though, I want to play Nemesis and Aeon's End. I think those are my two favorites. As you can see, I've got a shelf full of games
Yeah.
that I uh, don't get to the table nearly often enough. And I have a war room back there that I haven't got to the table at all, even though I'd really like to. The
Mm-hmm.
other game that I play regularly is the Arkham Horror LCG, the like co-op campaign card game one,
Okay.
that FFG actually makes. Though I tend to only do that in like really concentrated sprees, like once a year when I go home. I get my brother and my high school friends, and we play through whatever campaign came out during the year, and it usually takes like 10 sessions or so,
Mm-hmm.
and we just knock it all out in 3 or 4 days.
So you kind of push more towards just generally like larger campaign style, like Nemesis, where you're like sitting down for like a full day or couple of days, and
Yeah, I like co-op. Um, I like co-op games, especially when they're kind of complex. TI is really the only game like it that I play, and I've always loved it. And I don't know why, because it doesn't fit into my normal gaming tastes, but I
I
love
kind of
it.
feel the same way.
Yeah, I think a
When
lot of
we get
people do.
down to like the table, I'm like, well, we're either gonna play Love Letter or we're gonna play Twilight Imperium.
And very similar games, really,
Right.
when you think about it.
Yeah, it's like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, basically indistinguishable. Put them next to each other.
Hmm. Um, well, after you got the interview and actually got accepted into FFG, um, was it an immediate turnaround to start working at with Twilight Imperium and that IP, or was it a long time before you actually got to that point?
No, not quite. At that point, there weren't any whispers of a new edition yet, so we were just kind of uh, existing in that space between the second TI3 expansion and TI4 base. Um, I think my very, very first project was just kind of like, all right, here's just a little thing, and it was a Warhammer Quest, a game that only really got expanded a little bit because FFG like lost the Warhammer license.
Okay.
But it was like a little hero card pack, and so I designed 2 classes to play with the board game that were like extra, and they were print and play. And it was just like a little like onboarding type project, and it was actually fun. But I didn't know anything about Warhammer, so it was a Troll Hunter and Witch Doctor, I think. My first actual projects were Elder Sign, that Arkham themed card game, and that was a lot of fun because I was obsessed with Arkham Horror, so getting to work with those characters in that IP was great. And I did 2 of those, Omens of the Deep and Omens of something else. Can't remember the title. It was like a Dark Pharaoh themed expansion.
Probably some unpronounceable Cthulhu
Yeah, yeah.
type name.
I might have been Omens of the Pharaoh, but I don't want to say that. It was for sure that because I can't quite remember.
Hmm.
Or Omens of the Sands, maybe. But that was a lot of fun. Um, and during that time, I was also still one of the things I did as an intern, and actually in between as a freelancer, was write flavor text for Eldritch Horror.
Okay.
Um, so I did a lot of that, and I continued doing that, and eventually I actually did um, w- worked with the designer of Eldritch Horror, Nikki Valens, on an expansion for it. I think that was a Dreamlands.
Oh wow. Okay.
And also the follow up to that was Masks, and I had hands in on both of those a little bit. Um,
Not to interrupt, but Eldritch Horror was like, I remember early on, it was like a Christmas present from like my whole family like put together like
yeah,
some money to get me Eldritch Horror because I was like, I need a game that I can play by myself. I love these like very complex. Well, Eldritch Horror is not like insanely complex, but to me at the time it was like getting
yeah.
into the hobby. It was like insane. So I
Oh,
used to
it's
play.
complex enough.
uh, yeah, so I have some good fond memories of reading off the flavor text to not only like solo mode, but also to my friends. Even recently, we've gone through a couple sessions of Eldritch Horror, so we probably read what you've written.
Oh, I'm sure. I helped test the base game and Forgotten Lore, which is the first expansion, and then I wrote Ancient One specific flavor text and rulebook fiction from the third until the end, basically.
Okay,
So anything that was like on a research card that was for not just like a generic city area, but like an ancient one itself,
okay.
I wrote. And I wrote like a handful of other stuff as well, but it was mostly just the ancient one and research cards. I don't remember why that was, but that's just what I ended up doing.
Yeah, I
It was
remember many a
it was
nights of
fun.
like turning on the little lamp and like going through the rule book and being like, "Ooh, what new stuff is in Eldritch Horror?"
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What a great game! I love that game.
Yeah,
I would still play it. I have it
very
all
cool.
back here, and no group here that is particularly into that type of game, but I do love it.
Yeah, yeah, we get it. I get it onto the table like maybe twice a year because like
More than me.
gotta convince people.
Yep.
Um,
I, I maintain that I have still played probably more Eldritch Horror than anyone on the planet. Me and one of my coworkers and a couple other people, because we were testing Eldritch Horror twice a week, sometimes playing 2 games a night, so up to 4 games a week for like 4 years straight. And so I've played a lot of games of Eldritch Horror, and yeah, that's it.
oh yeah, that's super cool. I was like, I teach board games on the main channel. I'm thinking about just going back and doing like a how to play Eldritch Horror, even though it would get, it's been how many years since it's came out. It's not like the new thing, but it's just like it would be
Right.
like a vanity project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Um,
You'll breathe some new life into it.
yeah, yeah. So when you actually got to working in Twilight Imperium, you were recently on the Space Cats Peace Turtles podcast, and something you
Mm-hmm.
said on it was that there were some things that you wanted to help. I know you weren't lead designer, but you wanted to inject into the game that ended up being moved to the expansion instead.
Mm-hmm.
Did you kind of know
So
those things right away?
no, not exactly. And I actually was lead designer on the fourth edition.
Oh, sorry.
I I wasn't supposed to be at the start. It was actually Corey Kinezka's project,
Okay.
and I was just really into Twilight Imperium. So when I heard that he was slated to start working on it, um, I was like, hey, can I like help playtest? I was
Yeah.
still like a very like a junior employee at that point. Like I think I'd been there for a year and a half, something like that. And he's like, oh yeah, sure. And so then a couple weeks later, he came to me and was like, oh, do you have any ideas for like tech? That's one of the things I want to work on in TI4. Do you want to like throw some ideas on paper and then we can talk about it in a meeting and then we'll figure out what to do from there? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. So I, you know, kind of threw together a bunch of ideas, brought it to him, and he's like, oh yeah, cool. All right, now do the same thing for trade. And I like did the same thing for trade, and we like went back to it and did it. And then this kind of just went on for a while. And he's like, you know what? I'm actually really busy. Do you want to just do this project, and I'll just serve on it as like an advisory role and help with the rules and the rule book at the end? And I'm just like, yeah, sure. I mean, I was over the moon about that. Like super high pressure because it was like,
Yeah.
oh, how, like, this is like my third project, and it feels like very like a lot to follow up on.
Right.
Um, and at that point, Christian Peterson, the original designer of Twilight Imperium first, second, and third edition, was still part of Asmodee. So he was part of the sort of like visioning process of the game, like in terms of just the scope of it. Like, what would it be? It would be a big box, and it would have everything from the previous games, or maybe it wouldn't, or you know. But in terms of the actual design, he wasn't involved except for like there was like a 6 month and a year check-in, basically.
Okay.
And he did have some feedback. So like originally, I don't know why I remember this, but he was just like, I don't like the Winu. We're not gonna have the Winu. Like they were dumb. And
Oh,
I was just like, okay, so we're having 16 factions, and then at the 6 month point, he was just like, I don't know why I said that. Like it's ridiculous that we're gonna leave out only one faction. So put that faction back in.
okay.
And I remember another thing he had specified was like Sardak Nora had to have zero tech, so that's not my fault. The other thing was um, in the original design, the agenda phase started right away, and I recall him being kind of overwhelmed that we were doing two agendas just straight out the gate, and that he didn't feel like there was anything worth voting on so early, and so that's where the rule where you had to take Rex first before the agenda phase started came into play, and I actually really like that. So
I do
I'm
too.
super glad. I'm super glad that that whole that fix was actually proposed by Andrew Fisher, um, who um, he was part of that playtest with Christian and suggested that. So I'm really grateful that that happened, and we got to keep the two agendas per phase because I also like that mechanic.
Yeah, and it's
Of
very
course,
thematic.
yeah, it's very thematic. Of course, now I'm a little soured on the agenda phase overall, but that's because of 8 years of playing it and realizing that it can kind of be gamed and all that nonsense. But in like the beer and pretzels home group TI, like the agenda phase is usually pretty great.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think um I got a couple of comments. Two quick ones.
Go
First
ahead.
first of all, if anybody's been watching the channel for any amount of time, they know the Winu is my favorite faction. It has
It was that's very funny.
it has and it has been since the base game. It was not because of Prophecy of Kings either.
Sure.
Um, I am the only person on the planet that actually feels that way. I know that.
I'm very, very possibly.
Yeah, but I kind of like their sort of just like one note, like yeah, we're just gonna do this. Um,
Yep. That's
but
funny.
also, I lost my train of thought because now all I can think about is like imagining if the Winu wasn't in the game.
Oh, I know.
I wouldn't know what to do.
It'd be completely different.
Yeah.
Who would your favorite faction be?
Well, you know what? You know what? Let's just skip right to that question because
Yeah.
I think it's like 2 or 3 questions ahead. But if you had to pick one of your babies, now I know the answer that you're going to give, but I don't know
Do
if my
you?
audience is going to know the answer.
I don't know either.
I
I'm very,
I want to see
go on.
if I'm correct.
So, I'm very well known for being a Krius fan or having been a Krius fan, but they are not actually my favorite faction. They are not my babies. I mean, they are my babies, but they're not my best baby, not anymore. I really love it's very close between the Nomad and Nazroka, but I will almost always choose to play Nazroka
Really?
over the Nomad. The Nomad is just like a little too high effort for me. Like I just want to play in my area and like put
Sure.
together relics and then blow something up. Um, Nomad is for when I'm feeling particularly tryhardy, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I was wrong then.
Who did you think it was going to be?
I mean, I thought it was going to be Kraus, but
Oh yeah.
maybe I'm just like a surface level
No,
viewer.
no, no. It's been that way, and so many people have said that, and it's really only been in the last like year or so that I've kind of just started telling people like it's actually Nazroka. Like I will always choose to play them now.
Huh.
I like Krius, but I will always get absolutely bodied playing as Krius because I refuse to build plastic ever. Like I have too many things going on, and I'm just like,
Spread too thin.
well, yeah, like I can do this without building plastic. They won't attack me, and that's just. But I'm me, so everybody wants to attack me. Everyone wants a piece of the designer if you play the game. So I'm just constantly under attack, whether it's deserved or not. I mean, it never is deserved, but
Yeah.
yeah, never. Why would it be?
Well,
I'm
I promise that if we ever end up in a in-person game together, I will. Well, I won't like attack you for no reason, but also I won't be your support partner for no reason either.
oh, good. That's another thing that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember what I
Yep.
was gonna say, and it's that I just recently made like a top 5 expansion wish list, just looking into the
Hmm.
future, sort of like wishing of what could come from the game. My number
Okay.
one above anything else, above like all of like the frilly stuff, was a little bit of a rework of the agenda phase. Um,
Hmm. That's a lot. A lot of people have said something similar.
and I don't I kind of just agree with you that maybe it can just be gamed a little bit, but I think it's maybe over exaggerated because I also find a lot of fun in it when my
Hmm.
friends and I get together. So I kind of just wanted to agree with you on that point.
Well, you should try out that hidden agenda event.
Okay.
The uh, the one that I teased on Space Cats. It
Mm-hmm.
it it changes the agenda phase significantly. Not necessarily in a way that to make it what I would envision for a perfect design of TI, but it does change it substantially in a fun way, in a novel way at least.
Yeah. No,
It's
absolutely. I
worth
think
it's worth trying out.
TI is novel. It's not.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
which is kind of one of my next questions. Is that what does someone like me, um, or someone like a competitive player? Maybe I'm not a competitive player, but I look into the game a little bit.
Hmm.
Do we take the game in a direction that maybe it wasn't designed for? Like, was it always supposed to be novel and less
I wouldn't
competitive?
say that. No. Um, I think that people do have a tendency to game the fun out of things. That said, that's true for every game of any type, and it's really more that some people find it fun to do that where others don't. And so, to one group it is fun, and to another group it is gaming the fun out of it. Um, and I fall into both camps regularly, different games, and sometimes even for the same game. But I don't think it wasn't meant to be competitive. I mean, the intent is always that the balance is there. Of course, there are 25 question mark factions, and each one has a bazillion abilities. And there's an action card deck that's got like 100 plus cards in it, and now relics. And there's a certain point where it's really hard to predict how something might interact with something else in a fringe situation. So there's lots and lots of unplanned interactions, and even when a game gets tested enough times, and and PoK was tested more than any game has ever been tested at Fantasy Flight. It was like an insane number of games, and there were still things that were missed because how could you get them all, right?
Right.
Like, and so at a certain point, yeah, there's a point where you can't take something crazy seriously, but also it's meant to be gamed. It is a game. It's a board game. I mean, it's not just an experience. It's a game. I don't. Yeah, that's my take. I'm all for it. I don't like answering rules questions about it, but I'm for whatever people wanna. I appreciate the going deep. I mean, it also helps me because I read what people write. I note the design pitfalls that I trapped myself in, and see how people play, and It's like,
Sure.
oh, of course that component was going to be useless. I didn't actually think about what I a lot of times I will design from a thematic standpoint and then realize later that this is not good. It's very bad, actually. It's kind of useless. Um, but even so, like every faction in the game is playable. Even the worst factions. I mean, you can still have a good game or get lucky or outmaneuver somebody with plastic or politics. So I'm happy with where it's at. And TI is one of those self-correcting games where if somebody plays an overpowered faction, the table can prevent them from getting out of hand. Do they? Probably not, because people play way too nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's I'm not sure why that is. I feel like in the like my home groups, people just go rampant on each other straight out the gates. But in an online play, I see everybody like happily and peacefully going right up until everybody has 8 or 9 points, and then it just devolves into the fray
Yeah.
that last round, which is way different than my home games ever went. And part of that just must be that, especially if you're playing with 5 to 7 other people you don't know, and you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the first person to
Yeah.
launch an attack and just
Enemy
that kind
number
of thing.
one now. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, everybody's just looking for the first person to jump. It does lead to that weird thing that I don't like, which is like people people getting very free with the points they kind of give away early on. They're just like, yeah, we'll trade this, or sure, you can have that, and you give me true trade goods, and that allows you to score. It's like, is that worth it? You get 2 trade goods, and they get a victory point? I don't think so.
Yeah,
And
you're
then,
right.
but then at the end of the game, we'll get very mad if the last point was, you know, uh, not stopped by somebody uninvolved who couldn't actually
Sure.
who care. Like, it's like, oh, you could have stopped the winner. It's like, okay, well, you could have stopped the winner 4 rounds ago by not giving them a free point, but here we are.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely feel that. I've played with even recently, with people that I hadn't known before the game, and it was very, very nice. Like
Hmm.
just like you're saying, like people just giving away points and everything. But when I play in my home games, especially when there's a new player, new players love to treat it like space risk.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and it's really it's very fun. Like it's very entertaining. They don't end up with like a whole lot of points at the end of the game, but they have a great time anyway. And
Oh,
it
almost never.
introduces an element of like, well, this person's going to act like this anyway, so I might as well kind of join them because I'm not the only one at this point.
Yep.
And it ends up as a lot of fun. So I feel like beer and pretzels is my preferred way, but like somewhere in the middle, taking beer and pretzels, but seriously. I don't know.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
get the perfect game of TI for me is 6 people who I know personally, like all my friends in person, and everybody knows the game and doesn't have to look anything up in the rule book. They know the game well enough to know how it works, which means they know how the points work. But since I know them and they're my friends, we're gonna be aggressive right away when it's necessary. Like,
right.
there's not gonna be that sort of like, that's my ideal TI. That's how I like to play. I don't get to play like that very often. Sometimes even online, uh, usually I when I play, I do kind of fall into the accepted community meta, the kind of play nice, the boat float, and I'm actually okay with it. I don't mind it. I'll play that way and play happily. The only part that I don't like is the hypocrisy at the end, which is like the grumpiness over letting somebody win or giving
Yeah.
someone the game. It's like, well, sorry, you did too. You just painted it with a
Yeah.
different color.
You just did it a little earlier than I did.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Well, jumping a little bit away from the gameplay, I have one more part of the question about POK.
Yeah.
Was there any particular um, gameplay feature or component that you're specifically proud of? Like it came out exactly how you envisioned it? And then also, I know you don't want to like be regretful, but is there anything that maybe like you could tweak if you still had that ability, tweak about POK?
Um, Let me think. Something that I'm proud of. I love the relic system. I think it's great. I think it's hilarious. I love the way that it worked out. Um, and obviously I love Nazroka and the Nomad, so I'm particularly happy with both of those. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like a lot of stuff in POK. The the leader system took a while to land on because there was always something kind of similar brewing for it, but it went through a lot of iterations, and I like how it ended up. I like how it ended up with like the you had the like exhaustible slot, which is the agent. You have the passive shareable slot, which is the commander, and you had the like once per game slot for the hero. And that was a great. It ended up being great because it went through a lot of different versions that sucked.
So I love the leaders as well. Like
Yeah.
being able to just teach a new player, like, yeah, they're all different, but here's the general theme that everyone's got, you know,
Mm-hmm.
sort of like
Yep.
follows the same
The
pattern.
the pattern and also the gradual unlocks, both the generic 3 VP unlock or 3 objectives unlock and the faction specific ones. That is a byproduct of the previous system that sucked.
Okay.
um, which is when there was no real or early on in like alpha and pre-alpha, there was no um, like parallels between like there was no consistency in the way that the factions 3 leaders were handled. So it's they you didn't have the agent and the commander and the hero, and then additionally they were all available right away, and so it was like a mess. It was a mess trying to learn it. It was a mess keeping track of it, but it's a lot more manageable when uh, you unlock them gradually as the
Yeah.
game goes on, and especially you know you have your one that you have to worry about right away, and that's it. And everything else can come out gradually. And chances are that one you want to use on yourself. You could share it, but chances are most of the table in the very early game wants to use it on themselves. The group gets to see the player use that ability on themselves before they start like negotiating for it.
Right.
And so it's a nice thing. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. I don't have any real regrets with that. Individual components, maybe. Um, as
Sure.
far as regrets overall for POK,
Yeah, it's bad to call it regrets too, because like you don't want to like live your life think
yeah,
like looking back, but like I mean more like tweaks.
sure. I let them talk me. I let the testers talk me into not allowing home systems and Rex to be targeted by Stellar Converter. And all the time I think about, what if I had just allowed it? Would it have been fine? Because the original components allowed for that, and I liked that. That was fun. That was not a sentiment shared by everybody, but I think about that sometimes. I'm like,
Yeah, let them blow it
uh,
up. Why not?
yeah. Come on, it's not that serious. Um, There was also a earlier version of Titans, which I thought was very cool, but it was very fiddly, and I couldn't get it to work quite how I wanted. But the gist of it was that the cruisers could like morph back and forth in between like ground mechs and cruisers. So they would like land and be PDS or mechs, and then they'd morph back into cruisers, and you can kind of move them all around.
Okay.
And it never really quite worked, and because it turned into this thing where every component for the Titans was like beginning to end solid brick of text at like a
Yeah.
smaller font size and everything else. And then even then, when I finally thought we'd get it, we'd find some other thing about it that wasn't explained or was broken, or well, what happens if X or Y? Then And we were never able to make that to work. And I wish we had. In a video game, it would have worked perfectly because it all would have been operated behind the scenes. But
Right.
it doesn't always work that way for
Yeah, it's something
for
interesting about, like, I'm sure, again, I don't work in the industry, but tabletop design sort of different in that way where you're the one who has to run the operations.
Yep. I wish I could patch things, and I know that I could like errata them, right? But that's such a terrible thing to do because you're just basically putting out there that this physical component for a game that you haven't even bought yet is already out of date, and you just kind of have to know. Like anything that can be answered with an FAQ, I'd much rather do an FAQ for than an errata.
Yeah.
Um, I wish I could patch a game. You know, maybe that would be kind of a cool world where TI was like just able to be updated like digitally. Just I would change so many things, just a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit.
Yeah. Style
Some
converter.
things I changed a lot. Yeah, exactly. Some things I changed a lot. Stellar Converter could have just a game setup checkbox
Literally
allowed
all you have to
Stellar
do is just
Converter.
like delete like 5 words.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's kind
non
of what
home,
the
non legendary.
codexes turned out to be. I'm a big fan of them compared to just errata, like putting
Hmm.
one at a time errata out there.
Yep, codexes were fun. Um, Born out of that desire me to patch things and basically looking at not necessarily components that were overpowered or underpowered, but actually looking at components that just weren't getting used because they were so bad. Um, 'Cause, so that's why, despite people wanting it so much, I never really used the codex to like oh, make Barony better or make Arbrek better. It's because yeah, they're bad, but people were still using their abilities. They were just bad abilities.
Yeah.
And so most of the time, that's why that's how I chose what to do in the codex. And eventually, of course, the codex also began to contain new content, um, which I was also excited about because I was like, oh, I want to add more stuff. It's like a little mini expansion.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's how I
and
always felt
and
about it. I'm like, oh, it's a
it,
little, it's like
yeah,
drip, small, slow drip of like
Yep.
exciting
And
new
of course
content.
it all started as like a joke. I mean, it wasn't a joke. It was a just something for fun that I posted that happened to be on April Fools, and I didn't realize it, and then everybody thought it was a joke. And I was like, "Hey, studio, I could make a little print and play document, and this could be like a thing." And they're just like, "Yeah, go for it." Um, and then as soon as we did the first one, then like it kind of and it like caught on, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of had to become a little more official after that because originally the codex was just going to be like, oh, I'm just going to work on this whenever I want, when in my free time, and I will post it when I have enough for a codex. But it actually turned out that we kind of had to turn it into more of an official process because, for example, after we did the first codex, we got messages from like our partner studios doing localizations in Spanish and German and French and stuff. And they're just like, "Oh, what is this? Hello, like we be included?"
Yeah.
And so then it was like, okay, we have to make this an official thing. And so they became more of like a scheduled thing. And then I'd have to like uh, alert people ahead of time, and then we'd put it on the schedule and we'd send it out X number of months early so that it could get translated and that kind of stuff. And so it became like a little more of a official thing than just a for fun thing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we got to use it for Prophecy of Kings, which was sort of like a teaser, with like the teaser scenario for that had like previewed Argent flight abilities and some other stuff that I can't quite recall at this point. But
Yeah. Well,
so,
on this side of things, and I know you probably hear this a lot from a consumer, from a fan's a point of view, it did come out as just kind of a for fun thing. So it's really appreciated.
oh, that's
Little
good.
tweaks
I'm
and
glad. And that is always what it was meant to be. It's just meant to be for fun. And and even though it ended up having to be a little bit more officially handled, it was always something that was like pushed by me. Like the studio was never like asking me to do it. Um,
hmm
so in that sense, it was for fun,
yeah,
and
here,
still remains for fun to this day.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's appreciated. All your work on the game has been appreciated.
Well,
Uh,
thank you. I hope you continue to enjoy what is coming, and of course we have Codex 4 as well coming soon, at some point.
yeah, I'm excited.
I've been saying that for quite a while now for various reasons, but it really is soon. I promise.
Well, I'm glad
Um,
it has not been shot dead.
no, nothing like yeah. I post the Bambi picture or the Bambi song on Twitter, and people think, "Oh, that means it's shot dead." What?
No, I
That
laughed
is a
so
that is
hard
a
at that.
that is that is a stretch. That is a stretch. Yeah,
Yeah,
I laughed as well. It was pretty funny. I think the person putting it up also thought it was funny.
yeah. Um, well, speaking of sort of looking into the future,
Yeah.
I forget who presented it at the Gen Con, the FFG panel for Gen Con 2024.
Jim Cartwright, our studio head.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been. I've seen him present in the past.
hmm
Couple of exciting things in that, like the Agents of Shield from Marvel Champions. You're a big Arkham Horror guy. I'm a big Marvel Champions guy. It's sort of the same
Yeah.
excitement when new things come out.
I like
Um,
Marvel Champions. I'm just very bad at it.
okay. Well, again, if we get an in-person game and we pick up a
Yeah,
couple
I'd
of
be I'd be I'd
heroes.
be happy to play.
Um, yeah, he also showed off when the Twilight Imperium logo came up. I was like, if I was in the room, I would have been, one of the 10% that was like cheering in the back. Um,
Yep.
um, but he showed off a new planet art. It's also, I think, the same planet that you have in your X profile, whatever. It's exciting. Whether or not you can talk about it. Is there anything you can say about the future of TI?
Um yeah, so that art is integral to it in a way. Yeah, that was the art that did I want to say Jim showed that at Gen Con?
Yes.
The art
Yeah.
of the planet, yeah. Um yeah, he said it had ties to the lore. And it does. I think maybe he misspoke a little bit. It's more that the 'cause that art specifically is not going to be recognizable to anybody who's done any number of TI things. Like it's irrelevant. It's new art.
Okay.
The name of that planet is a reference to something in the studio's past, not Twilight Imperium's past. In a way, it's Twilight Imperium's past, but in the studio's past, that's my hint. So now people can go running around and hunting for whatever I might be talking about. But
Okay.
yeah, it's and if it's figured out, it still isn't going to illuminate anything for anybody. They're just going to go, "Oh, is it this?" And then I'll go, "Maybe," but it won't mean anything. It's just the name of a planet.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a little funny. That was very much a wild goose chase that Jim sent people on. I've really enjoyed the memes that have come up about that particular comment, and also about him, lifting the invisible box, and how now people just
It's the box
say
shaped thing.
it's the box shaped thing instead
Yeah,
of the
literally just
expansion.
going like this, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
somehow that came
yeah.
as if
It's
something's
very
not going to be shaped like a box.
yeah, right. It's hilarious and absurd, and I think, of course, that's why it got kind of memed on. But
Yeah.
I love it anyway because people have been a good sport about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't really comment on things that aren't announced yet. So
Sure. Yeah, we'll
that's
we'll
that's
keep
that's all that's all that's
confidentiality.
all I got. That's all I got.
Okay, well, now I'm going to see on various platforms, I'm going to see people like flipping the planet upside down and like trying to like figure out like exactly what this thing's
And they can
named.
look through the red and blue sides of the sunglass, trying to see if there's
Yeah. Yeah, there's some kind of
a
binary
hidden
code.
text. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you have other projects that you work on at FFG. Is there
hmm
anything specific that the Twilight Imperium or just board game community in general should be looking forward to? Any projects you
Um,
work on? Any?
yeah, the thing I'm working on currently is very cool, but that I don't think I can comment on at all,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
uh, there is cool stuff from other people, the studio that is coming out that are just came out. I know I'm like I said, I'm mostly just looking forward to this Christmas so I can go home and play Drowned City with my brother and friends, which is the new Arkham campaign. Um,
Yeah, I saw that it finally has Cthulhu in it.
yep. If as far as things that I've designed, if you wanted to look at something, maybe have a look at Dagger if you like Champions, Marvel Champions. Do you know Dagger at all?
I saw it. It didn't come out this last year, Gen Con. It was a preview from the previous one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you aren't familiar with it at all, maybe it's something that would be up your alley. It kind of went under the radar, and the general consensus seemed to be that it was okay, and I like it well enough. I mean, I hope I like it well enough. I usually design things for myself.
Yeah.
But it's basically like Eldritch Horror Marvel. So
Really?
it's yeah, so it's co-op in the style of Champions, but it has like uh you're controlling, a sheet-based character that is effectively like an Eldritch style character and going around doing missions against, and well, it's not an ancient one, but it's a Marvel villain, but it has like a system of like hero customization and like team ups abilities and stuff that I thought was fun. And it never really caught on, and that's fine with me. But it might be something that would be up your alley specifically if you liked Eldritch and also like Champions. See, it's a very niche
Yeah.
crowd to appeal to. Um,
Sounds like we might have similar tastes in games.
yeah. But you can like basically you have like a character sheet and it's Thor, but Thor has like two playable options. Like, are you Thor or are you Jane Foster? And their abilities are different slightly.
Hmm.
And then on top of that, you can also choose um like which of the like Marvel Champions style templates they are. So it's like, are they justice? Are they protection? Are they aggression? And that ability or that choice also changes or augments their abilities in a way. So you end up with like a whole bunch of different permutations of the way that you can kind of like make your like team.
Yeah.
Um, so it's interesting. If you
Yeah.
do try it, let me know. Let me know how you like it.
Let's check it out.
It's
I'm
a
putting it in the cart
yeah.
right now.
it's a it's a it's a I'm happy with how it turned out, even though it didn't end up being fantastically popular. But once you get it, I think it's a decent night of board games. Hopefully,
All right. Well, I might try to get my friends together on Tuesdays, so it sounds like Marvel Dagger is going to be one of those.
all right,
Um,
you'll be the first people to play it.
oh, come on. Um, well, thank you very much for being on. Is there
Anytime.
anything specific you want to kind of like end on? A lot of these people have been playing Twilight Imperium, I think, for a very long time. Sort of your general thoughts on the community, or whatever you want to close it on.
Uh, I before even to this day, before I consider myself like the designer of TI, I just consider myself a player of TI, and so I kind of like I implied a moment ago, I design for myself. So by proxy, I design for the community. Like, I'm not trying to turn everything I do that I design in TI, I design because I think it will be fun, and it's for all of you guys. It's not really, yeah. It's hard for me to figure out how to say this, but it's just I hope that everything that is coming, even if you know you don't love it, like people still get where it came from and like it, and uh, yeah, it'll be a good time.
I personally can tell that the game came from a place of love. Like you said, like you ended up as the lead designer of the base game and everything because you had like this crazy passion for it. I I don't think I would have cared so much for the game if 2020 didn't bring such a crazy new edition that had literally everything I could have possibly asked for.
Yeah.
Whatever is planned, whatever comes out, I'm looking forward to the future. So thank you for making this such a big part of my life. And it's been absolutely wonderful to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise.
All right. Have a great rest of your day. See you next time on the Cardboard Crash Course.